Well, good morning, delegates. It is great to be here in beautiful Montreal, and I really hope everybody takes advantage of the sights and sounds and obviously the wonderful food of Montreal. I can actually almost taste my next Montreal smoked meat sandwich, and for those that have seen me in Rubens a few times this week, you know I'm not kidding. So I want to start off by thanking the rest of this incredible leadership team that I get the privilege to stand by side with and carry out this exciting work at Unifor. Lana, your tirelessly work on every file and advocating for every sector that Unifor represents, plus every other issue that is important to workers and communities across Canada is just simply amazing. This work is seen by our members from coast to coast. What many of you might not see is the amount of international work that Lana does. Lana ensures that Unifor's reputation of being a progressive fighting union is seen beyond our borders. Our international affiliations have never been more important than in today's economy. The multinationals control so much of the global wealth and have a direct impact on so many of our members. This needs to be challenged by global union actions, and Lana is ensuring our voice, Canada's labor voice, is heard. Sincerely, Lana, thank you for this and your friendship. Daniel? Yes. While I do not need to applaud your accolades here because you are everywhere in Quebec, and you do a tremendous work on behalf of our membership. I have been to Montreal a couple times this year, attending your Quebec Council and a demonstration during the CN Autoport strike as the strike was taking place in Atlantic Canada. Unifor took actions to show that when you use scabs, you get our attention, and we went across Canada and had more activities planned just in case. Well, I went home here from Montreal with a souvenir, an injunction that named Danielle and I. So I guess I must say thank you. Merci, Danielle. Jen, thank you for the great work you do on behalf of our members in all 4 Atlantic provinces. I have already mentioned the CN Autoport strike in Halifax, but I did have the opportunity to spend some time with you and the strikers and what a crew at Local 100, Lodge 1. An amazing membership that took on a giant, including the weather, which was relentless during that strike. The rain fell from the sky. I know it always does, but it seemed to come sideways, both ways, and always in a swirling, bone-chilling wind. And I think I need to repeat a line of yours, Jen, which describes the Atlantic region. We may be small, but we are mighty. Jen, you're like the region you represent, a little bit mighty. Your words and actions and compassion and fighting spirit comes out on top, always with our members. So thank you for that, Jen. Samia, what a year you've had. You jumped in with both feet running and have not slowed down. We have had our share of strikes and campaigns and protests in Ontario, and you are making Unifor proud. Coming from Bell, you understand the struggles we have within the telco, and your assistance with the ongoing Shame on Bell campaign and the march that we held in Ottawa was instrumental. Your dedication to our members at Best Theratronics has been evident throughout this struggle. You have been on the picket line and there for these members and all the members in Ontario every single day. Your advocacy is second to none. Thank you, Samia, for the work that you do. Gavin, well, I'll admit you've traveled from the furthest coast to get here to Montreal and across 3 time zones. You do a terrific job ensuring Unifor is in every conversation across the Prairie and BC regions. Your assistance with the reps and industry directors make sure that our members feel the support of the leadership. I saved you for last in honor to you because I noticed every now and then you do like to have the last word. And P.S., I kept my comments brief so you can have just a couple extra seconds. Thank you, my friend, for the work that you do. He'll use them. And I want to thank all of you, the rank and file members and local executive members. You continue to push us to strive to be the union we all want Unifor to be. This is exciting as we collectively gather and move into Unifor's 2nd decade. If you made this your first Canada Council to attend, you picked the right one. We wouldn't be celebrating the start of our 2nd decade of optimism and inspiration if it had not been for the leadership and vision of some bold labor leaders in the past. And I thank you for joining us here. Thank you all very much for that work. I would like to take a minute and recognize the local unions that have invited us to tour your local halls and your workplaces. These visits are some of my personal highlights of the year. I have great respect for workplace and local leadership as I remember this position well. You put yourself forward to be elected and commit to represent your coworkers. It can be the most rewarding and challenging role you undertake. But visiting workplaces and meeting with our rank and file members in their element, where they have the comfort and ability to speak what's on their mind, is a great experience for us. Our members, you, all of you, have some of the coolest jobs, and so many of you are proud of the work you do every day, and rightfully so. It really is gratifying for us to meet with you. It is also important that we recognize Unifor solidarity and social opportunities that support our members in many different forms. It can be an event that supports or raises funds for a local hospital or organization doing great work or for the underserviced or not sufficiently supporting members of communities. It can be joining members at a Labor Day parade, joining as allies and supporting members at a Pride event, or even supporting different ethnic communities who are celebrating their heritage, or something as simple as participating in a local run golf tournament. It is always a privilege for us to participate in social justice activities with our members. Throughout the year, many of our sectors have held their councils and conferences. When you bring your delegates together with like-minded interests, great things can happen. It is the work of these various industry councils that makes it possible for Unifor to speak on behalf and speak as strong advocates for the many different sectors that we represent in the Canadian economy, as well to represent you. The telco sector. We know we have our struggles with Bell Canada and the other players. We have taken a beating for many years. I want to thank our local unions for coming together and working on our campaigns as we fight back and work to protect our jobs. I have said this in the past, but I want to thank Lana and the complete elected leadership team for coming together in Ottawa last March for our rally, press conference on the Hill, and the launch of our Shame on Bell campaign, following the massive unnecessary chaos Bell imposed on our members. They have once again framed their actions in the form of restructuring. What has been restructured is the massive amounts of wealth within the bank accounts of each of the CEO, directors, and the board of directors. We did a great job exposing this corporate greed, but need to expand on our outreach. The Canadian public must understand that good telco jobs are important, and they are important to build and maintain an infrastructure that all Canadians and companies require in a modern society. Thank you to the staff reps, all the departmental reps, for the work that you have done on this file. At last year's Canada Council, Peggy Nash, and welcome Peggy, and thank you for coming, was chair of the Ethics Task Force and presented 6 recommendations which were adopted by Council. I'm pleased to provide you with an update. Unifor has an ethics commissioner, Peter Eggerman, and he is a labor lawyer who honed his skills during the massive strike actions in Alberta during the 80s. Some of you may remember the strike at Gainers, at Canada Post, and with the Alberta nurses. These events taught Peter much of what he needed to know about the importance and power of union job action. Peter will guide and support Unifor through complex ethical issues and ensure compliance and integrity in our actions and decisions. With Peter's assistance, we will develop an educational program to train leadership and rank-and-file members on our code of ethics. This will include awareness tools to help prevent conflicts of interest. In addition, 2 constitutional review committees have been established and to provide the NEB with recommendations for the Constitutional Convention next year: the Constitutional Review Application of Ethics Committee and the Constitutional Review Committee. Finally, 2 policies have been adopted. A gift registry and a procurement policy to promote transparency and accountability. Here is an example of how our procurement policy and how we are dealing with third-party vendors. The policy provides clear understanding of each of the parties' expectations and how goals and objectives are being reviewed. You will see the return of some service providers in the common area of the Council. For example, Unifor has a transparent relationship with its pension providers, like the CAT pension plan. We've seen thousands of our members level up their pension plans in the last 12 months by migrating to CAT. and this is from something we should all be proud of. But most importantly, our relationship with CAT is driven by what is best for our members and a commitment to transparency. You can find CAT's CEO in the lobby today, as well as other service providers, as we have invited them to council. At this point, I would like to thank the staff of our union that have dedicated their lives to the work of the Unifor. Our CNRU staff, our coordinators, the COPE staff, and Unifor Local 2458 at our Family Education Center in Port Elgin, plus the complete out-of-scope leadership team. There really is a lot of moving parts every day in this union, and each and every day we are striving to do great work. We need to do that because it is a privilege to serve on behalf of you, the delegates, the membership that you represent, plus the membership that you represent in each of your locals and workplaces. Last year, there was a resolution on the pension and retiree benefits was raised, and I am pleased to bring back the findings to this council. As an outcome of the 2023 Canadian Council was the creation of 2 working groups with the job of exploring the possibility of setting up a new pension plan and benefits plan. These working groups met in 2024 and have a report to share with this council. The findings of the report can be found on the table before you this morning. The main takeaway of the reports that Unifor should not introduce a new pension or benefit plan in light of the considerable risks associated with this project. Instead, we should continue to advocate for robust public programs like the CPP, QPP, and pharmacare, and bargain quality pension plans at our workplaces. This has been a proven strategy to serve us well to date and will serve us well into the future. I would now like to have you to refer to the financial report that was distributed this morning. In front of you is a 2024 financial report that has been expertly pulled together by some of the greatest staff in any union, the accounting department. I am lucky to work alongside with Fred Rydell, and Fred's joined me up here this morning, our Director of Finance, and Len Poirier, the Assistant Director of Finance, and their hardworking team that work behind the scenes day in and day out to keep us on a financial track. Our team in Ottawa, led by Julie, have a complex job of working with all local unions and assisting them with the various issues such as compliance. We know many local unions are still struggling in this post-pandemic world. Fred and the accounting team at the national office are working hard to keep us current and making the right decisions to secure our resources to assist us in making projections that will keep Unifor on stable footings well into the future. So if you can refer to the handouts before you on page 2. The year ending 2023, we will look at the statement of revenues and expenditures. The general fund. You okay? No, it's on the screen. Maybe not. Oh, here, okay. Dues are at $97 million. This has exceeded the 2019 levels, and the other income of $15.8 million rebounded from 2022, as the investment income has also rebounded for a total revenue of $112.9 million. The education fund at just over $4.5 million, the convention fund at $1.5 million, the strike and defense fund is at $14.5 million, and the organizing fund is just over $9 million, for a total of $142.5 million for 2023. Now look at the expenditures. In the general fund, personnel total costs were $66.4 million, our office cost $13.4 million, and general expenses at $23.8 million, for a total expenses of almost $104 million. The education total expenses were just under $5.3 million. The convention expenses are negligible in 2023 as it's a non-convention year. The strike and defense fund expenses were $13.7 million. The organizing fund expenses were $6.6 million, for a total of expenses of approximately just over $129 million. So at the end of 2023, we had a surplus of $13.3 million. Page 3 shows the details of the fund balances, and the total of all funds you can see as a net worth of the union was $267.2 million. If we turn to page 4 and 5, this is the 2023 strike and mobilization expenses for the year of just over $8.5 million, which was highlighted by some long disputes, as in the Windsor Salt in Ontario and the auto bus in Quebec, plus the largest dispute in Unifor history in Ontario in the retail sector of Local 414 with 3,700 members of Metro. There are a lot of lines on this sheet, and I won't go through each one of them, but one interesting fact here about the strike fund, and is about the checks that our Strike and Defense Department produces from the data that is provided by the local unions. You see, we have checks that don't get cashed, and this creates a problem. Every month, the coordinator on the file must reconcile every unit strike account, so uncashed checks hold these accounts open. We need to address this process as soon as possible, so these checks could be deemed to be delinquent and stale in 60 days. We'll work on that, but we'll give everybody a heads up. On page 6 and 7, this gives us a view of 2024 and the first quarter up until March 31st. With just an overview, it looks promising, showing an excess of $7.5 million, but when we have some major expenses and budgetary modifications to be realized in 2024, highlighted by the significant expenses of our new staff agreements with CNRU, COPE, and our Port Elgin members at the Family Education Center. As we continue to resume normal activities with the inflationary pressures from 2022 and 2023 continuing, we know all our staff expenses and meeting costs will continue to increase, and we need to be very mindful of our spending going forward. Being diligent is the responsibility of all of us to ensure the members receive the services they require, but as a national union, we act in a prudent and responsible manner. This responsibility is not only expected from our staff, but from the leadership as well. And it has been noted that the spending by the leadership has declined from the 2018 and 2019 levels by approximately 20%, while the leadership has in fact increased by the approximate same number. We have 6 additional members of the leadership team, and our expenses are down in total by 20%. Page 8 is the January to June 2024 strikes. The 2024 strike and mobilization expenses for the 6-month period is just over $5 million, and highlighted by some disputes, such as Green Shield, Nestle, Jameson Laboratories in Ontario, and the aforementioned Autoport strike in Nova Scotia. Once again, I have to thank the great team both in Ottawa and at the national office for the work they do for our county. I mentioned off the top the great work Len and others do when Unifor represents our membership internationally. I would like to highlight our participation and fees that we pay and how Unifor plays different roles in these sectors. And we will always be reviewing these roles, and I will say on an annual basis, our levels of interaction with these global bodies may change as different sectors' needs change. Some of these affiliations, Unifor is a benefactor of the solidarity action, but in many cases, Unifor actually provides invaluable expertise to these global unions and bodies, and we must always be willing to share this. But for the time being, as we come out of the pandemic, we have learned that virtual participation is possible. I am trying to be cautious and am very much aware of the high cost of international travel, and we are keeping an eye on this. As an example, in 2018, our international travel was over $800,000. In 2019, it was $660,000. But post-pandemic, and just the complete data from 2013 was it was under $300,000. So we are using other tools where available. Just briefly on the organizing report, because organizing is so important to us and the growth of Unifor. We have had 25 new units for almost 3,000 new members. 7 applications are currently before the various boards, covering another 1,343 potential members. This does include the Amazon 700 Plus in Delta, BC, And this outcome we expect in mid-October at the earliest, as there is hearings scheduled throughout the middle of October. The others are pending ones, and we feel pretty confident in our position, and that is also about 500 new members in these 6 other pending applications. So thank you again to the organizing department. Yes, absolutely. We have heard from both Lana and Danielle to talk about the great work of the organizing department, but what we haven't talked about is also that they are responsible for 9 units that were either in a RAID or a DCERT position, and they have successfully retained this membership. That is over 3,670 members we've retained by the great work of the organizing department. Just a quick note that on the 2023 report is out for the Social Justice Fund. This unique Unifor initiative continues to make the most amazing changes to people's lives in some of the worst conditions. If we look at the domestic disasters, the Social Justice Fund contributed $100,000 to the Red Cross for wildfire emergency relief across Canada. And along with contributions made from the regional councils and national, our donations totaled almost $200,000. Last year, we also celebrated the 10 years of the Unifor Social Justice Fund. To mark this occasion, the special 10th anniversary grants were awarded to 6 national and international organizations, such as Oxfam Canada, Doctors Without Borders, and the Tears for Hope Society, for a grand total of $600,000. These projects will make long-lasting impacts in communities across Canada and around the world. This will continue to demonstrate Unifor's commitment to social justice and international solidarity. I must speak specifically to Port Elgin and the Family Education Center. It is wonderful to see that we are back at full capacity after the devastating period that our members and staff endured during the pandemic. And we know we need to make some serious decisions about Port Elgin in the future. But I'd like to highlight some recent bylaw changes that were passed by the board. We are now using short weeks and that will open up additional training days for Ontario-based members. This is also very important to me as it will maintain full-time working hours for our staff. We are also reviewing many of the departmental bylaws and operating procedures necessary to support the modern social union that we are and have policies and processes in place to achieve this. But let's be clear. The Family Education Center will always be the heart and soul of the union, so offering regional education opportunities does not deter us from that. But to anyone paying attention to the family education budget from our union over the last decade or two, will be aware that the best case scenario for us is to run a deficit of $1 million or more each year. That target is getting challenging. All of us have experienced inflation and the higher costs for food, utilities, and building materials, and Unifor is no different as we need to address this in the budget. As you are aware, for the first time since Unifor was created, we have modified some of our internal cost structures for the Pell and conference uses at the Family Education Center. It was very necessary to do, and I thank every union's administration for the understanding and the need for us to do so. I had also mentioned last year, much of the maintenance and upkeep was stopped during the pandemic, and we have worked very hard to catch up on that and get things back on schedule. So I want to thank Sarah Hamilton and Graham Brown for collaborating on this work. A lot of new work has been completed, and for anybody that's been up at Port Elgin this year, you see it. Some of the things that are happening there. The flooring replacements in various areas throughout the center, full replacement of the stage curtain system in the assembly hall. We are now in the final stages of the perimeter access control for the center, full replacement of the outdoor childcare playground surfaces, the exterior deck, stair replacements, the installation of the EV charging stations is almost complete, and many members are asking me about that. The hot water tank replacement is complete in all the residential units. The storage access areas expansion is going on. Access gate replacement in the kitchen receiving area is completed, and the ongoing glazing and roofing repairs that are necessary are being done. But we also need to do some substantial work on other facilities, not only to protect our capital assets, but to upgrade where possible. So from coast to coast, and I'm sure some of the locals and many of the staff are experiencing this work. For example, in Atlantic Canada, at the Halifax office, a new HVAC system, access control, and boardrooms and furniture replacements are being done. In Moncton, the expansion to our lease space and new offices and the brand new classroom are to be completed next month. St. John's, we have made upgrades to the HVAC system, and we have done some work in the Sydney office. Here in Quebec, we have opened up a new office in the Baie-Concur area, which is very exciting. Lots of work to be done there. And we have ongoing upgrade and refresh work to be done in the Quebec City and the Montreal offices at the end of 2024 going into 2025. In Western Canada, we have had major structural upgrades, including a new roof in the Winnipeg that are happening, and scheduling some of the major work to be done in the new Westminster Regional and Local Office to begin in January 2025. In Ontario, some regional offices in Windsor, London, and Kitchener have ongoing upgrades, including the modernization of the control systems, plus the ongoing work at the national office. We are very pleased with the progress on the third floor conference facility. Its utilization and capacity are increasing every month. This new space with the translation booths and options to resize this room has proven itself to be a valuable resource for conferences, industry councils, bargaining strategy sessions, as well as hosting international sessions. Many of you will know we are still getting moved in, and many shuffles are happening at the national office, but we are working to complete this process. I want to emphasize that the financial viability of Unifor is our collective responsibility. I want to thank the local unions that have paid attention to the reminders and best practice notices that we have been promoting. We have had a lot of success of assisting dysfunctional locals for various reasons, and when conflicts have been brought to our attention, we have worked with the units to find a resolve. Unifor is a big organization, and we are growing every day. We have a team in place that looks after everything from local union matters to organizing and then scheduling Unifor events. All these moving pieces must come together and keep us moving forward. We continue to implement consistent practices and policies to allow us to do this work efficiently, sustainably, and with the social justice lens that is so important. Building and refining processes have been the main focus this year out of the National Secretary's office, and they will help us build in the future. And I know every financial secretary and local president wants to be prudent with their expenses and spending your local dues, and we share that, and we thank you for that work. Before this council is over, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the team that helped organize this council. Kathleen and the comms staff, Operations Director Graham, Nelson and our IT department, Director of Events Laura, John and Mike and our workroom staff, Nicole, the interpreters, Michael and the Encore team, and our staff and our administration staff that make everything happen in the background, and Sari. Sari, I cannot help you enough for the work that you do in my office, our office, day in and day out. So thank you very much for that. I know it's Saturday morning. I hope everyone's still awake, and I know numbers can be pretty boring, but just one more thing before I wrap up. You are all making a difference. Together, we are all making a difference, and I hope you are as proud as I am. Solidarity to everyone. Thank you.